Hello and welcome to Affinity. We're going to look now at this picture and see if we can make a careful little edit of it to make something different, maybe something with a bit more interest. It's a pretty interesting picture anyway, because we've got these two very high cycle jumpers and a very interested crowd. So first of all, I tend to think of what composition am I going to find here. So go to the crop and say, well, this is a nice shape in this bike here. Maybe we can do something here. And also in these two things, by the way, your eye tends to go backwards and forwards, so it might be better to crop down to one. So if I bring this across here, don't need all that sky, but a little bit to show the height there, and come up somewhere like this to show a bit of the crowd. If I apply that, what I can see here now is this figure here is just too big and dominant in the scene. So I'll do Ctrl Z to undo it and we'll look at the other one. So we'll go back to the crop tool here and we'll come in from here somewhere and come up here, bit of crowd here and down here. So that's okay. Let's have a look at that. And the thing is, this head here is a bit distracting as well, so it's nice to have something else. So what we can do here is if I go to the crop tool again and now drag this sideways a bit, and I'll look from other things which I can kind of clone or copy across to here. So if I apply that, now I could take these here and put them over on top of this. I could do it with a clone, but a quicker way with less hassle is to use the selection. So I'll use the selection brush and I'll just zoom in a little bit so I can see a bit more of what I'm doing here. And I'm going to go around this person here. I'll use that diagonal here to match against this diagonal here. We could sort of blend things in, but this works around like this. Then hold down the Alt key and paint the things down here. With this, by the way, when we're doing a selection, we've got the add here, snap to edges and soft edges as well. So Alt click on there, gets rid of that. You can see you kind of fiddling around with a little bit here, trying to get most of the way to the edge, but don't worry about it because we're going to do a refine. So we go to the refine here, and this helps us tidy up the edges here. So go in even closer so you can see we've got a bit more along here. First thing to do, if we paint on the long edges, we're telling it to have another go at improving that. That doesn't work so much. So if I go then, let's click the foreground here and cover little clicks in here, and there you are. Just click one at a time and it's going to try and figure out the best way to do this. If I look around any of the others here, maybe a bit down here, and you will get some bits bleeding out, but we can address those later, so that will do. So I'll go back out again, and when I output, I can output to a new layer with a mask. When I do this, one of the things that it does is it tidies up the edges a little bit more. And also it lets me continue to change it later on. So I've literally got this on this layer here. But now if I go into this again, then on this layer here I can move it. So I go to the move tool and I just drag this across, and we're moving this bit here in particular. So I can move that onto there. It already blends in quite well because I did that refine. And this bit down here I'm actually not going to worry too much about. But if I just look in a bit further, there's a little bit around here. So all I can do now here is go to edit the mask. If I alt click the mask, you can see it's this bit here. So now I'm just going to paint a bit of black to take that out. So I go to the paintbrush tool and make sure I'm using black here, Opacity, let's just turn that all the way up actually, and hardness maybe a bit up the middle there. So I'm just painting that out here. So I'm painting black on the mask and just taking out a bit of that top layer there. What's this like down here? Maybe a bit down here as well. And I'm going to do something about that in a moment, which is actually going to crop above that. I don't really need that. Also, because I've got a bit of the face appearing here, I don't want that in there, so I'm going to go back to the crop, bring this across here. I don't want enough space for this person to go into, but I don't want too many distractions. I bring the bottom up a bit here, so there's a little bit of hair there, but it's not as bad as the other one. Maybe a little bit more. That's about right there. Maybe bring the top down here, so the thirds is, you know, the bike is in the top area there, so apply that. There, that's okay there. That's a bit better than before. Now then, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to merge this down, because I want to do use up this up here, the tone mapping. So I just click on the top one here, there, right click and merge down. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, hit Ctrl J to duplicate it, and then go up to the tone mapping. So now let's have a look at this one here. This is fairly bright. This one gives a little bit more detail. I don't think it's looking a bit too HDR like that, so I'm just going with the top one. And in the controls here, I'm going to turn that brightness. I think I got knocked up a little bit there. Be very careful when you're doing this, you can knock things accidentally. And the tone compression is having this effect, so I can just turn that up to somewhere that works. Okay, that'll do fine. Let's apply that. So I've got this much brighter bike here. The crowd here now is a little bit too bright because it's distracting from this up here, so I want to tone this down a bit. So what I'm going to do is put a mask on here. So I can just go to the mask layer here, click on that, and this will take out if I paint on in black on that. So I'll take the paintbrush tool there, and the controls up there are okay. Just need a bigger brush, so right square bracket. Then if I paint down here, then I'm knocking some of this out here. I'm doing this fairly roughly here. I'm going to turn the opacity down now quite low to do a bit more of a blend, a bigger brush, just to blend that a bit more into the background above. So if I alt click on the mask like that, you can see where it is. This is probably a little bit much of a blend there, so I'm going to, so I can see this here, I want to smooth this out a bit more. And it's surprising how doing this you can see here the way that's merging into that up there. It's quite different. And I can also, with this, play with the opacity of this top layer here. So I'll go to about there. I think that's working a little bit better. There we go. Okay, what's my next thing that I'm going to do here? With this foreground here, it's a little bit on the sharp. I want to put more attention up here, so I'm going to slightly blur this. So I'm going to go to the live filters and go to the Gaussian blur. This is appearing at the top, by the way, because if I go here to Assistant Manager, I've got Add Adjustment Layer as New Layer and Add Filter as New Layer. And then if I turn this up here, what you see is around the edges we're getting this sort of transparency. To get rid of that, click on the Preserve Alpha. But we want the radius here now to be down even just around 1 pixel to knock this off. But I want to apply this just to the bottom. So I want something like this mask here. So I click on that mask and I want to duplicate it, Control J. And I'll take it up and drag it up against that one there. But then I've got the wrong way, I've got this blurred and this sharp, so I just want to invert that mask. So I can go to Layer, Invert. Now if we're looking closer to this, see this one here is just a little bit softer. So what else can I do? The areas out here, some light areas down here, I'd like to sort of tone those down a bit. So I'm going to go to a Adjustment and Curves, and I'm looking just at the light areas here. And I bring this down, and this brings down that light area there. Bring that down there roughly to halfway, that'll do. Then I want to apply this here, but just to this, so I'm going to hit Control I and then paint back in with a white brush. So my brush here is white. Opacity is medium low. Hardness, there, I'm going to turn that hardness down most of the way so that it blends in nicely. Now if I go down here more, if I paint on here, see I'm just painting in that there to take down those brighter areas, just to stop them intruding. And just do those light. There we go. So that's made that not quite so intrusive. Okay, now what else can we do? Shall we make these trees just a little bit lighter at the top here? So I go to the Adjustments and HSL, and I'm going to pick one of these here. So the picker now comes alive. I click on that and click on the tree around the top there. Now if I pull this up here, you can see the way that's affecting this. I could actually use that picker again. See, if I click somewhere else, that's hitting a bit more the top. Which areas do I want to affect? I just want to pick out some highlights, and maybe doing it like this. But now obviously not as much as that, but I'm going to shift the hue a little bit, see where this goes. So I go towards a more red there, I go back towards a more green here. Let's have that slight green, then bring the saturation down to enough so it's just accentuating a bit. There's quite a bit down here as well. I'd rather have it up there pointing up towards the biker. So I'm going to switch to black and get the paintbrush here, painting on this as the mask, and opacity I'll turn this kind of right up. That very low hardness is okay because I'm just going to paint on this mask here. Down here I'm painting in black, please. There we go. And that just takes that effect from down here, so it doesn't have the attention there. It pulls it up to here. Let's take a little bit off there. That's it. Okay, and let's just do one more thing, which is we're going to go to the bike here, and this has got a green on the bike, but the tree is green as well. Let's make that stand out a bit more by making it red. So we'll use another HSL, and we'll click on the red. Yeah, well, actually, let's click on the green. Actually, can I pick that? But it actually doesn't matter because I'm used to the picker, so it doesn't matter the colour underneath. Click on this here, which selects the colour there, and I'm going to turn that to red using the hue shift. And I could even play around with these here, make that a little bit lighter or darker. No, I don't think I need that. Now then, this is affected everywhere, so I want to get back to that HSL there, layer and invert, so it goes back to what it was. But now I want to put this back again, so I want a paintbrush. I want to paint in white just over those areas. So there we go. And then just painting in that red there, so it just stands out a little bit more. Anything else? Could make this a little bit darker up here because the light is pulling upwards on that. So I'm just going to add a pixel layer there. Going to paint in black with the paintbrush with a very low opacity. So pull that down to about 30%. What does that look like? Make the brush a bit bigger and paint up there. I'm not sure about that. Let's make that opacity down there a bit and take the hardness all the way down. So painting down here, the opacity, around about 10%, and just paint on here like that. And you can blend that in a bit. Maybe if I use the multiply, is that going to make that effect? There's not going to be much effect there, is it? But it has darkened it down. So what I'll do is I'll just change the opacity of the whole thing there. So I'm just getting a little bit of darkness above. There we go. It's a bit more natural, isn't it? That takes that down to 50 rather than that bright there. Just brings it down a little bit. Okay, there's the final picture. And I've gone from this to this. Anyway, that's it, and thank you very much for watching.